You're watching Beyond Markets. Welcome. I'm Kenneth Igbomo. On today's show, we'll begin our series of conversations ahead of Nigeria's 2019 elections. You can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets and follow my handle at Kenneth Igbomo. Political season in Nigeria is about to hit full gear as the candidates representing the political parties have been finalized. We will be engaging some key thought leaders in the country ahead of the elections in a bid to shape the quality of discourse that will drive the process of picking Nigeria's next leader. Joining me for today's conversation is Foluso Phillips, the Executive Chairman of Phillips Consulting. Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Yes. So when we look at trying to raise the bar for the quality of conversations that need to be had ahead of our elections, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I think we've got to try and make sure that the issues that are discussed are those that are really relevant and important to people, those issues that have been a persistent cause of frustration, if I can put it that way. And so ordinarily, I think the starting point is always what kind of a value proposition these guys have for the country. Where are we headed? Yeah.
Okay, so when you look at the candidates as they're shaping up, we've seen the candidates are already known right now. We're done with the process of concluding the primaries for both the governorship elections and then the presidential elections. When you look at the candidates and their running mates, and their value proposition, as you rightly mentioned, where do you see Nigeria heading in the next dispensation?
Well, I think, again, looking at them, putting them side by side, fortunately enough, all of them in one shape, manner, or form have actually shown what they can do. Atiku, at the time when he was VP, irrespective of all that surrounded him at that time, Peter Obi, the fact that he was a governor and he had his own track record. Then currently we have a current president and a current vice president that's actually doing what they're doing right now. So certainly there's a lot of data there, so to speak, that one can use to compare them. The existing couple, if I want to put it that way, they have shown, I've seen a lot of strength in the vice president there. There's been a good kind of accountability for the country, a very, very nice and communicative style, which in a way is not in line with what the president, his style. And so he sort of made up for that and sort of being the voice of the presidency. And he's done it pretty well. Very articulate individual, very intelligent, capable, experienced, and respected individual in the country. The president, he's been president before. He has his own style. He's very, when I say stern, just stern in the sense that he's got his own very strong focus. A bit of a stubborn streak, if I can put it that way, but then again, it comes with generals like him. And the fact that his own focus has been principally on dealing with corruption, which therefore sort of implied a more intensive and strict way of governance. The Atiku-Obi couple, I see a much more enterprising type of rulership coming in place. I see an Atiku that's going to be driving private sector initiatives. I see an Obi that's going to be supporting that. I see an Obi that's going to manage the government well in terms of, because he's been very, very strong on managing the government and governance in terms of the cost and cost of ruling. Because he did that very, very well when he ran his state when he was governor. Atiku is a very business savvy, a lot more communicative, got an interesting presence, got a good connectivity globally, and I think he'll go out and represent Nigeria well. If you ask me what's so important for us now, yes, we really need to get back into the global community. We really need to see the people and organizations and money that moved out when, unfortunately, the dollar was an issue for us. I mean, oil was an issue for us in terms of the pricing. But more importantly, the body language, as we all noticed, of the president at that time was a bit negative, to be quite honest. And the fact is shown by the amount of billions of dollars that were sort of shipped out of the country out of fear of what was going to happen in the future. I think Atiku's attitude will be a lot more positive, a lot more encouraging from that point of view, and probably a lot more perceptively friendlier to the private sector than we see today.
Okay, so we're looking at two ends. One you think is going to be more profitable for the private sector. I would like to take you up on what you mentioned earlier. We were talking about, you know, the influence of Nigeria. You know, as Africa's most populous country, the largest economy on the continent, when you look at the kind of influence the country should be wielding based on the regional level and then at the international level, do you think, you know, what do you think or what do you expect of the next person taking this mantle of leadership?
Well, one thing is for sure, we certainly have, for want of a better description, not taken full advantage or full responsibility of the role that we play on the African continent. And even in this current dispensation, there hasn't been much of any Africanism in our approach. Previous governments have actually done a lot more in terms of playing a role on the African continent, having some kind of impression, leadership, driving things, and just standing up and saying, look, we stand up for Africa. I chair the South African-Nigeria Chamber of Commerce, and if you take South Africa, which is the next big partner country, there's much that we have done, and even in a way we've sort of aggravated ourselves with the various issues with MTN and some of the banks out of South Africa. So the relationship hasn't really been tight, and when you look at all the other countries that should follow, nothing much has really happened from that point of view. But the irony of it all is that Africa still looks up to us. You meet most Africans across the continent, and they still tell you that, look, Nigeria, we look up to you, we look for your leadership, we see you as a strong economy, strong people, strong personality, strong character, extremely entrepreneurial. We can copy you in so many ways in terms of the things that you do. But then again, we tend to sort of fail where leadership comes in.
So we've not been playing the big brother role across the continent as much as we should have been?
No. I think we've been very insular in our thinking over the last few years and haven't appreciated the fact that we form part of our own Pan-African economy. Okay, now some issues that are top burner when you look at what we expect next year, issues around the economy. Everybody wants to know who's going to do what for the economy, because we all witnessed the recession, and no, I don't think any Nigerian wants to go back to those times. When you look at the economy and, you know, the quality of conversation that should be had, especially around from the manifestos and what they are all proposing to do, you know, at that level, what do you think we need, you know, at this point? Well, for me, you know, I started off and said that we really need a value proposition. I've always claimed that. You know, as a consultant in most organizations, you start off with a view and a strong vision that everybody revolves around. We have failed as far as that's concerned. There's not been any one thing that we are pursuing as a country collectively. As a result of that, the direction has been quite poor. Now, one thing that if you ask me the number one thing, apart from this value proposition, is the rule of law. I think to a great extent, our current president has tried in a different way to push the concept of the rule of law by just saying he's dealing with corruption, okay? But I believe that in carrying out that exercise, there have been instances where even the government itself has defiled the rule of law. And if there's one thing we need to really put in place in this country, and one would like to listen to the debates and discussions on that, on what would be the attitude of the next government, whether it's retained or it's new, to executing the rule of law. One that is seen to be fair, that is seen to be equitable, that is seen to be to discipline the economy, discipline the people, make people to behave well, reward when possible, and punish appropriately. It is non-selective, and all these things will deal with issues of corruption itself. So we cannot attack corruption, but we've got to attack the system that makes it happen. And that is what we're failing to do at this point in time.
Very interesting. You're mentioning corruption at this point, because that's actually what's going to be my next point. Because, you know, it's our understanding of what corruption is. A lot of people have said, you know, we seem to be dealing with the symptoms rather than the root causes of corruption. I'd like you to speak to this point.
Oh, yes. I think, you know, when you have a system that allows you to misbehave, okay, instinctively the human being would always take advantage of what it is you feel you can get away with. If you look globally around the world, successful countries that have been able to maintain a certain level of discipline have done so through a very, very powerful, strong rule of law. And the rule of law permeates through creating great institutions. And we know that, you know, when you look at the World Economic Forum and all those ratings, they're looking at the power and strength of institutions. To what extent do you have strong institutions in your country? And what drives institutions is the rule of law. Because if I create an institution that's got laws, procedures, and rules, and regulations, and policies, and nobody obeys them, and there's nothing that's going to force me to make sure that these things are followed, then nobody can do what they want. Well, and so you look at the regulatory agencies, the different regulators that exist, the laws that they pass, who obeys them, and when they are not followed, who deals with them. And so the issues about accountability, and people, you know, dipping their hands where they shouldn't. All these things, they really have to be dealt with, but decisively. Our courts must be spick and span, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And we've got to be able to trust. That's why you look at the American system, where getting the Supreme Court at the highest level in the land is a major issue, because we're saying that when things come at this level, it's got to be fair, it's got to be equitable, and it's got to be seen to be transparent.
Interesting. So we'll pick up that thought right now. We'll pick up the conversation, you know, after the break. I've been speaking to Foluso Phillips, the Executive Chairman of Phillips Consulting. Welcome back to Beyond Markets. If you're just joining us, Foluso Phillips, the Executive Chairman of Phillips Consulting, is with me today, and we're discussing what to expect ahead of 2019 elections. I'd like to start off with some of the issues around the process itself of selecting the leader. When you look at how it's been, we've had a series of elections in time past. Very recently, we had the Osun State elections, we've had even the primaries, and when you look at how all these have been conducted, do you feel confident that we're going into a process that's going to be free and fair?
I'm very worried. I'm extremely worried about it, because it seems as if we have the intensity of distrust that has taken place within a party itself, where everybody's supposed to be one happy family, we can all sit down and agree who it is that must go out and represent us. Let's pick the best of the lot that we've got, so that it can strengthen our opportunities out there. And we find that even then it's full of rancor and I don't want to use the word deceit, but certainly some parties feel deceit. That then creates major problems when we're going to have inter-party elections at the state level and at the national level. And you look at the umpire, INEC, again, certainly the last time, the head of INEC, Jaga, yeah, he certainly stepped up and was seen, you know, consistently, so even globally, as somebody that was very upright and dealt with these things in a very, very visible way, if you know what I mean. Transparent is the word I was looking for. Now, this time around, I think that, like I said, I'm worried. I have a feeling that we might have issues. I have a feeling that the process itself needs to be very, very well monitored. You find that usually the party that might be in power in a particular state tends to dominate. The security agencies are supposed to help. Somebody once said to me that the elections really take place when the results are being written, not when people are voting. And at that point, it's amongst a group of people who might decide to write what is not true. And so you find that the election, it's hijacked. So whilst we can look at a very extensive process and look at all the logistics involved and voting and paper and ballots and so on, when the rubber hits the road, is what is that individual or individuals or a group of individuals, what are they writing as the outcome of these things? And you find that both parties or all the parties concerned have got to come around and sort of say that we've got to develop a very strong process to ensure that what we counted and agreed is what is eventually written down, signed, and monitored all the way to the point where it is announced.
Interesting. It speaks to the strength of the institutions that we have in the country.
Before.
Yeah, like you mentioned before. I would like to speak about another part that's really dear to me and I'm very, very passionate about, is the area of youth and employment and when you look at human capital development in the country. When you look at, you know, what, you know, we'll be seeing the manifestos of the candidates soon, but when you look at how they posture from where they stand, how do you think they will perform regarding this critical part?
You know, funny enough, the third thing in my list of I talk about value proposition, the next one is strong institutions through the rule of law. The third one is education and health. You see, the thing about it is that when a government comes in and you present what you do, it's very easy to say, I built that bridge and I built that road and I built that railway line and we set up this huge factory or whatever. But the things that are very silent that need time, that is investing in education, which you never see straight away, investing in healthcare, which you don't see straight away, and yet those things form the foundation to sustain any economy. The education is something that is very natural resource agnostic. Countries that have had no natural resources have thrived on education, educating their people. And the education, the power of education is so great in the sense that for you to be educated, it implies that you have gone through a very disciplined process of passing your exams, of learning what needs to be learned. And that process itself forms your character. So when we come to talking about politics and elections, and the people who are voting are not as educated as they should be, then the discipline that you expect in an individual to think through and act responsibly is gone, because, you know, I didn't have to study to achieve anything, so I don't understand all that process. So I will just do whatever it is I need to do and not think it through. Now, when you link that now to the fact that if we don't educate our people, okay, we are not building the kind of skills that's required for us to get on with work. Now, the country, you will always pay for what it is that you do. Yeah. And we are beginning to feel the impact of the poor educational system that's taking place in the country over the years. There's about 12 million people that say out of school. It's worse in northern regions of the country. And this is where you have this youth bulge. And what happens is you've got a lot of young people that are able and capable. They don't have anything to do. Therefore, they will go to the highest bidder. That's why we have issues about young people going into all these Boko Haram, and then guys in the Niger Delta. It's, I don't have anything to do, and I'm young, I'm unable. I've got a lot of people that have left the country, and legally, the level of emigration that has taken place is huge. And the irony of it, again, is that the countries that are accepting Nigerians, they do so legally and happily, because they handpick and select. So it isn't a case of you jumping on a boat and smuggling yourself into Canada or the United States or whatever. They say, look, you've got this qualification, you've got this competence, come, welcome. You come in, have my passport, become a national, and we're draining all our people slowly. So the people that have brains are going. The ones that have brawn, that are strong and capable, they also are going, but through a more tortuous route. But a lot of them do make it. So when you look at it, our best and brightest are leaving the country. And how are we replacing them? And yet we need the best and brightest to stay in the country and replicate themselves by staying and being around. So one would want to hear what the government is going to do about it. When we had, years ago, when I was the chairman of this chamber of the Nigeria Economic Summit, we ran a summit on education. And you find out that we really haven't got to grips with what we should be doing with education. And it's not a one-time thing. It's something that's got to be sustainable over time.
Very interesting. It speaks to the importance of improving our development outcomes, you know. And when you look at how, because I think if we have a system where we have citizens engaging government and holding them more to account, you know, I think some of these outcomes might have maybe churn out a bit faster than they are doing currently. Do you think we are, as citizens of the country, do you think we're at a level where we're engaging government in the level and manner in which we should?
Well, not enough, but certainly, ironically enough, the social media, which we must never underestimate, is serving as a kind of a barometer of how people feel in the country. And and if you could put a meter to it, you could really gauge the intensity of what people say and how they feel about the country. But the ultimate test, okay, the ultimate test is when it's time to vote and vote people in based on the accountability. And we've got to devise ways and means. You see, first of all, we've got to be sure that we've got a fantastic way of counting votes in a very, very clear way. You know, I wish we had a system where we can put in electronic voting systems that guarantee that my vote would count and not get merged up at that last second when the person is writing the results, okay? If I can do that, then you find that people will pay attention a lot more, because there are a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge about what's going on, and not the masses who can be bought for 1,000 naira a loaf of bread, but the people that are really, and there's a lot of them, okay, especially the young folks. They're the ones that are most active from that age of 17, 18 up to about 35, 40. They're very, very active in what's going on in that area. And so they can influence through demand accountability the way the country should go. But until we get that means of making sure that every vote counts, that everybody, I can go and can vote electronically, and it can be recorded, and it can add up to whoever it is I'm voting for, then you find that a lot of people are going to sit up and be amazed at.
Interesting. You're mentioning some very interesting points here. I'd like to take you down the path of the ethics of electioneering. You know, so you mentioned a very critical part of what I wanted to discuss, which is vote buying. And then we have issues of political thuggery. You know, we have issues of how even the political parties raise funds for their elections and all that. I think there's a major ethics discussion here that needs to be had. Because if we say we have people of the highest values and character running for office, then how then do we have people who sponsors political thugs to steal ballot boxes, to beat people or intimidate people to not come out to vote? Or because we even in the governorship elections that we saw some of these things. You know, I just need to speak to that, the ethics around our election process.
Very related, in a rather convoluted and indirect way. I ask, why are people so desperate to go into government? And that's a very fundamental question. Why are they so desperate to get into government? And I believe that because of the kind of economy we run, whereby we're an oil-producing country, whereby the government sits and receives a phenomenal amount of US dollars from the oil sales that we make, you're saying that I can go there, and because we do have a lax system, and don't let's fool ourselves about corruption, it exists, and people go in there. So there's something attractive for some people that is over and above going in there and providing phenomenal service to the community and being a true servant of the people. And so when there's that level at stake, and when I have to spend so much to get in there because my opposition is doing the same, then it begins to get, you know, I spend money, then I need to justify how I've spent it, then I start getting violent, and because the stakes are very, very high. And I go back again and I say that if what you're doing in the streets makes no difference because I'm going to sit at home and vote on my phone, then all of a sudden you're going to change and say, how can I show you, Mr. Phillips, that I am the person you should vote for? These are my policies, these are my intentions, these are my credentials. Please, when you're pushing that button in the comfort of your home between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock on voting day, please vote for me. Not get a whole mass of people, pay them money and say, go and line up and vote and get anybody in the way, let's get them out of there. That for me would solve the problem a lot, because a lot of people who think through the process, who understand those who are truly deserving to be leaders, they sometimes don't even vote.
Interesting. On that bombshell, I think we'll end the conversation today. And thanks a lot. We'll keep our eyes on the quality of debating that's going on ahead of the elections. I've been speaking with Foluso Phillips, who is the Executive Chairman for Phillips Consulting. And that's it on Beyond Markets. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can watch this and all previous episodes of Beyond Markets on our website at cnbcafrica.com. Stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets and follow me at Kenneth Igbomo. Do have a great day, and remember, we're first in business worldwide.